Let's go back and talk some more about the new Moonlight Serenade album, and maybe get you to choose another favorite track.
I love The More I See You. There's something that's just so timely about that. It's a song of its time. It's extremely evocative, just emotionally resonant for me.
That's The More I See You by Carly Simon, her new version on the album Moonlight Serenade on our Christmas Day special on Radio 2. Having a good Christmas Day so far?
Isn't it wonderful? I'm just so glad to be talking to you and so glad to be enjoying this brisk weather. And
yes, you can hear the wind whistling outside.
Yes.
We'll just hole up here for a few days if you don't mind.
This house is so nice and tight right now.
It does have a certain presence, this place, doesn't it?
The house has so much history to it.
Yeah.
You know,
Have you found that it's affected or influenced songs that have kind of come into life here?
I'm very free to write here. I don't hardly ever write about it, interestingly enough. I've lived on Martha's Vineyard for so many years, and I've written maybe 3 or 4 songs about Martha's Vineyard.
What was that song you wrote called, was it Never Been Away?
Never Been Gone.
Never Been Gone, yeah.
Yes, that's one of the very few. There's another song, Out to the West of Lambert's Cove, which actually Ben and Sally cover on Ben's new album, which is thrilling. It's just thrilling. I remember they called me from the studio in London and said, "We have something to play for you, Mom." And they played it, and it was just, of course, brought tears to my eyes.
Out to the west of Lambert, out to the west of Lambert, there is a sail out in the sun. And I'm on board, and I'm small, and I'm on board. I've come home to stop yearning. Burn off the haze around the shore. Burn off the haze around the shore. Turn off the crazy way I feel. Turn off the crazy way I feel. I'll stay away from it. I'll stay away from it. I've come home to stop yearning.
Can you think of a song that really was sort of born here, that kind of went from nothing to realization within this house?
Most of them. I would say that certainly more than 50% of the songs I've ever written were born and finished here.
Do you find that once an initial melodic idea is in your mind for a song, do they evolve greatly?
I have a faucet in my brain that goes just on at a continuous rate. It's ongoing. It just doesn't stop. It's sort of the way your heart works, but you're not always aware of the fact that it is working. My melody's always working.
Don't you find, though, that if a melody comes into your head, do you not just think, is that new or have I just heard it somewhere?
I always have a melody in my head, and it's always new, which doesn't mean that it's not always derivative. In other words, if I all of a sudden turn on the faucet now, I would be able to sing you a complete melody, probably with a bridge and a chorus, that it's not like I've been singing it all day, it's just there like a water faucet. I might go and I might tape it as it is in its unstable, unfinished origin, sort of like a piece of marble that hasn't been cut into yet. And I'll sit down and I'll play it into a tape recorder and I'll say, wow, that's all wrong. But I'll take it as a starting point.
It happens every day to lovers with the best intentions to stay. Together they decide to separate. Just how it happens, neither is certain, but it happens every day. It happens every day. After you break up, you say these words to your friends. How could I have loved that boy? He was so bad to me in the end. Well, you make him a liar, turn him into a robber. It happens every day, every day, every day.
What happens next? Do you go back to listen to that recording a bit later on and then start working?
Well, I'll start crafting it. If it sounds at all interesting to me, I'll start to hone it, and I'll start to say, oh, well, I like those two notes, and I like that with this chord, and I'll add that chord to it, and I'll see what it sounds like. And sometimes, I sit down at the piano, and I'll actually close my eyes, because I'm not really a pianist. My fingers will go to a disorganized group of notes, and I'll see whether those disorganized group of notes will go to what I've written already on the tape recorder. And then I'll change it according to what I've already put into the tape recorder. So it's a series of mistakes that are then made right. I've been writing so much in 6/8 recently, I almost don't know 4/4 anymore. So I try now on purpose to write lyrics that fit into 2/4 or 4/4, just because I so naturally go to 6/8. That's my birth rhythm.
Well, I think everyone's going to be delighted to know that you are writing new stuff, because it's a while since your last new album of your own.
I haven't stopped. I've got books upstairs that are filled with lyrics, and I'm just waiting to put a melody and a rhythm to, and I can't wait to do it.
Okay, well, I'll give you the rest of this holiday off, and then you've got to get to it, all right?
I
want something new. Let's have another Christmas song, shall we? You mentioned that your Christmas album. Shall we choose something from that record?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Let's
Your
do
choice.
that, since that's a Don Was record. Let's see, what should we play? Let's do the reggae one that we did, God Rest You Merry Gentlemen. That's with Ben and myself singing with Arnold McCuller. It's just a fun version of that song.
There, a bit of Christmas reggae for you on Radio 2. Carly Simon's version of God Rest You Merry Gentlemen. Does Christmas generally tend to be a pretty busy time around the Simon household? Do you kind of have a big open house type Christmases here?
We usually have big parties of one type or another, either a dance party or everybody sitting around singing, friends coming over. I make this Swedish glug, which makes everybody incapable of driving for 5 days. So they're all sacked out here on the couch for 5 days. And I'm feeding them eggs and toast every morning, and while I'm pure myself.
Of course.
And so, yes, it's a fun time, and there are turkeys to be roasted and stuffing to be made, and the kids all join in. And very often, they get a new pair of flannel pajamas every year. Of course, they're totally grown and, way past walking around all day in their pajamas, but they do anyway. And both my son and my daughter and their significant others will spend all day knitting.
But the other thing about Christmas is, this is a big house. I have this vision of you kind of discovering stray guests who, fell asleep and didn't emerge till February or something.
No, but I still have to feed them toast and jam every morning.
Come on, time to go home now. Christmas is over. It's the new year.
No, it's definitely a fun time. And sometimes our friend Edna O'Brien, who's an Irish writer, comes and visits. Well, actually, that only happened twice, I guess. But she's come and visited us. That's been great fun, because she's just so wild and fun and spirited, and she writes here, and she'll be writing out loud from one room, and there'll be music going on in another room, and it feels as if it's Greenwich Village all over again.
Yeah. We'll be talking about Ben a lot, and I think it's time for us to listen to something from his new record.
Oh, good.
Great new album, which I think is only out in the States so far, isn't it? I don't think it's out in the UK, but doesn't mean we can't recommend it.
I think it's about to come out in the UK.
Yeah. It's called Another Run Around the Sun.
It's called Another Run Around the Sun, and I could never figure out which is my favorite on it, except I think it might be a song that he wrote about John Forte. Let's play Ben's Digest, which is about our friend who's been in prison for far too long. The song is called Digest.
Here's Ben Taylor.
When it gets me.
From Ben Taylor's new album, Another Run Around the Sun, a song called Digest. He's become, and he's been, working in his own career for a long time, but he's become a very substantial talent in his own right, and your musical director on your recent tour as well.
He is. He's my musical director, and he's just so wonderful. He tells everybody what parts to sing and play, and he organizes things. He and Larry Chauncia, who is his fellow musical director and also our drummer on this tour, very, very talented man. And
do you think there was a period when he was starting out as a musician where he was, I'm sure he couldn't help but be conscious of, how much like his dad he sounds and looks?
Yes, but he approached it so brilliantly. He approached it very generously and said, quite honestly, listen, how could that be bad? How could looking and sounding like James Taylor be a bad thing? I'm so honored that people would think that. as time has gone by, he's developed more and more of his own voice, which is a little bit different, and his own look, which is a little bit different. But he hasn't done it in a self-conscious manner. It's just sort of happened, just the way I used to sound just like Odetta.
Mm.
But then as time went by, I sounded more and more like Carly, just the more I sang.
Odetta being a great old blues singer, we should say, for anybody who doesn't know.
Right, a folk and blues singer from the United States who's a big influence on Dylan. In the beginning, I wanted to sound like a combination of Peggy Lee, Annie Ross, Odetta, then Cat Stevens, Elvis, Frank Sinatra. I had so many influences, and I tried to sound like all of them. But eventually, my sound or my voice kind of overtook the influence that they had upon me, and I suddenly emerged sounding like myself.
The album of yours where I'm most sort of tempted, probably wrongly, but tempted towards drawing kind of literal conclusions is Letters Never Sent, because you made that from a box of letters that you've written but never sent to people. So when you look at the lyrics of that record, it seems as though you're writing specifically about real people.
I think that that's probably a good conclusion to come to there. I mean, you know, that was one place where I was saying these are messages that ended up in a drawer somewhere that never did get delivered to people that I wished that I had been able to say something to at the time. Or, on the other hand, very glad that I never sent the letter.
Yeah, just relief that they never
Relief that they never got it.
There's one song in particular that I wondered if we might play from that album, which I've always loved, called Like a River.
Oh, Like a River. Well, that's a song that was actually a letter that I wrote to my mother right after she died. I did write it initially in the form of a song. It was never in the form of a letter. But aware that I was writing an album called Letters Never Sent, I put it in a letter form. I addressed it to her personally as I spoke it.
It's terribly moving because you're talking to her in the afterlife, basically.
Asking her questions.
Did you reconcile with Dad?
Does the rain still make you sad? I'd love to play that.
Dear.
That's from an album called Letters Never Sent, which Carly Simon released in 1994, I think.
94, 95, yes.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about whether we might persuade you to go back to the guitar one more time for us and perhaps choose another number. Is there something else in that you've got in the live set